Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In some minutes, we will begin our international conference. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all respected guests and participants from around the world. Welcome to the second International Conference of Environmental Science with the main theme of conservation and local wisdom. This international conference is also dedicated to the commemoration of World Maleo Day that celebrated on 21st of November 2025 and underscoring the importance of preserving of Maleo as part of our natural heritage and environment identity. This conference brings together leading researchers, practitioners, and policymakers that committed to advancing knowledge and motivation in the environment science. We are grateful for your presence and participants in this important academic forum. To the honorable guests, to begin our ceremony, I kindly invite all attendees to stand in respect as we listen to the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you, and I will take the time. And the next agenda to seek blessings for today's program, we will now have the recitation of a prayer. And ladies and gentlemen, may I invite the prayer reader to lead us in prayer. Mr. Fadel Budiman, please have a seat.
Yes, sir. Ada suara. Yes, ada. So, before the prayer, we can acknowledge and appreciate of our non-Muslim participant. Please feel the pray and remind with us and observe response according to your own. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. O Allah, Lord of world, we thank you for allowing us together here today, the two and the International Conference on Environmental Science 2025. We are grateful for the knowledge, opportunities, and connection that you have granted us. O Allah, we ask for you guidance throughout this program. Bless every speaker, research, and participant with clarity, wisdom, and the sincerity in the sharing their insights. Ya Allah, make this gathering a source of benefit for humanity and for the protection of the environmental you have entrusted to us. Inspire us with ideas that lead to real action, innovation, solution, and the greatest responsibility towards your creation. Allah, protect us from the difficulties, grant success to all our efforts, and bless the cooperation and the meaning result. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for Mr. Fadel for the leading our prayer today. And now we proceed to the opening remarks, and it is an honor to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Universitas Negeri Gorontalo, to deliver the opening speech. Professor Dr. Fitriane Lihawa, MSc. The screen is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Upon us all, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greeting of virtue, let us embrace the spirit of sustainability. Distinguished Vice Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Honorable Heads and Secretaries of Departments, Coordinators of Study Program, Honorable Keynote Speakers, Prof. Jimmy, Professor and Curator of Herpetology, University of California, Berkeley, Professor Dr. Anang Setiawan, Researcher and Curator of Mammals, Museum Zoologicum Bagorais, Dr. Kevin, Senior Curator of Mammals, Museum Victoria, Melbourne University, Melbourne, Australia, Profesor Dr. Yohan Tamu, Professor of Cultural Anthropology, Universitas Negeri Gorontalo, Dr. Irwan Bempah, Universitas Negeri Gorontalo, Farid Zulfa Fahrudin, PhD student, Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Our esteemed speakers, invited guests, and all conference participants. First, let us express our deepest gratitude to the Almighty God. By His grace, we gather at the Second International Conference on Environmental Science 2025. This academic forum unites scholars, researchers, students, and practitioners to share insight and enhance our understanding of global environmental issues. This year's theme, Conservation and Local Wisdom, addresses the urgent need to integrate traditional knowledge and modern science. As environmental challenges grow, local wisdom provides essential value and practices that sustain balanced human-natural relationships. Our goals at this conference is to champion solutions that blend scientific insight with time-tested cultural traditions and to forest lasting conservation. We are honored to welcome our distinguished speakers, all of whom are prominent scientists and experts who have made significant contribution in their fields. Their participation is both an honor and valuable opportunity for us to gain global perspective on biodiversity, culture, and environmental conservation. We are proud to welcome 92 presenters. These presenters come from regions across Java and Sulawesi, showing strong enthusiasm and commitment to Indonesia environmental issues. We hope this conference becomes a catalyst for impactful collaboration and solution building. By exchanging ideas rooted in science and culture, we can develop strategies that advance sustainable development and environmental preservation based on local wisdom. Finally, with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I declare the second International Conference on Environmental Science 2025 officially open. May this conference proceed smoothly, productively, and bring great benefit to all. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Fitrianeli Hawa, for your insightful and inspiring messages, and also for officially open this International Conference on Environmental Science. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the opening ceremonial of the second International Conference of Environmental Science 2025. And we sincerely hope this conference will foster meaningful discussion, valuable collaboration, and impactful scientific contributions. Up next, we will continue with the panel session featuring 6 keynote speakers from across the world, which will be moderated by myself. And I invite all participants to stay with us as we transition into the scholarly session of today's event. Thank you and please enjoy the conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed keynote speakers, and all respected participants, and welcome to the panel session of the second International Conference on Environmental Science 2025. And this held under the main theme, Conservation and Local Wisdom. And my name is Mulyani Zahra Paramata, and it is my privilege to serve you as the moderator for this session. And this second year's theme highlights the critical intersection between modern environmental science and the invaluable knowledge embedded in the local traditions and indigenous practices, and the dialogue between scientific advancement and local wisdom forms an essential foundation for effective and sustainable conservation strategies. And today, we are honored to have 6 exceptional keynote speakers whose scholarly contributions span herpetology, mammalogy, cultural anthropology, environmental sciences, and environmental assessment. And their perspective will enrich our understanding of environmental issues from multiple disciplines and degrees, and our appreciation of conservation practices rooted in local communities. And before we begin, I would like to briefly outline the structure of this panel session. Each keynote speaker will be approximately allocated 10 minutes to deliver their presentation. And since this is a panel session, we will continue to the next speaker. And after all 6 presentations have concluded, we will proceed to a question and answer session. Okay? I hope every participant understands these technical guidelines. And let us begin with our first speaker. Our first keynote speaker is Professor Jimmy A. McGuire, a distinguished scholar and curator of herpetology at the University of California. And today, he is going to share with us a presentation with the topic of local wisdom and conservation and local wisdom. And Professor McGuire will have honor to give 10 minutes of presentation. And may I confirm to Professor Jimmy, would you like to share your own presentation, or would you like us to present your presentation, to share your presentation on the Zoom?
I think better if I share from my screen.
Okay, please have your screen, sir. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, well, I put together a 20-minute presentation based on what I was told beforehand, but if we need to cut me off at 10 minutes, I'm sure that will be fine. Before I begin, I would just like to thank everyone who organized this event and for who invited me to give this presentation. It's always a great honor to speak at Indonesian institutions, and particularly those on the island of Sulawesi, an island that I love very much. So thank you very much for allowing me to give this presentation. I'll begin by just noting that something you probably already know, which is that if you're a resident of Sulawesi, a resident of Gorontalo, then you live on the world's coolest island. So you live on the dunia yang paling keren di dunia, or the pulau yang paling keren di dunia. And it's not just me who thinks that Sulawesi is the most interesting island. I mean, no other than Alfred Russel Wallace also shared this opinion. And I've included a couple of quotes here from Wallace discussing Sulawesi. The first is that there's no other example on the globe of an island so closely surrounded by other islands on every side, yet preserving such a marked individuality in its forms of life. This is Old English for there's no other island surrounded by other islands that has such a high level of endemism. And Sulawesi, in fact, has an incredibly high level of endemism, perhaps the highest level of endemism of any island in the world, which, of course, is really interesting. And we will talk about why that's the case in the next few slides. A second quote from Wallace, we now come to the island of Celebes, in many respects the most remarkable and interesting in the whole region, or perhaps on the globe. since no other island seems to present so many curious problems for solution. And here he was talking about biogeography. So Sulawesi is a fantastically interesting island from the standpoint, for many reasons, but from the standpoint of its biology, from the standpoint of biogeography. The satanic nightjar here is just one of many endemic species that are present on Sulawesi. So this is information that I provide to a non-Indonesian audience. People often are unfamiliar with Sulawesi, your island, but this is a tropical island, spans the equator. It has a huge population of more than 20 million people. This often is the point that I make to sort of impress upon people just how large Sulawesi really is. It's the 11th largest island in the world. And notably, importantly, it has vast topographical relief, large areas over 1,000 meters in elevation, 15 summits greater than 2,500 meters, and 3 summits above 3,000 meters. So why does Sulawesi have such a high degree of endemism? Well, of course, this is also going to be familiar to this audience. The map here shows Southeast Asia. Sulawesi is obvious there. The areas in purple are areas that become connected by dry land during glacial maxima. So as recently as 14,000 years ago, most of the Sunda Shelf, Borneo, Java, Sumatra, the Malayan Peninsula, they were all connected to one another by dry land. And so consequently, those islands share the same fauna that you also find in continental Southeast Asia. Of course, there are endemics on each of these islands, especially in the mountains, but a lot of shared fauna because very recently they were all connected to one another as a single land area. The same applies in the east to, I don't know if you can see my pointer, in the east to New Guinea and to Australia, which are connected by the Sahul Shelf. Sulawesi, however, has never been connected to any other continental land area, and consequently, its entire fauna had to arrive by overwater dispersal. And it's not an easy overwater crossing, even during glacial maxima when the barrier is narrower. And consequently, there's not gene flow between the Sunda Shelf fauna, Borneo, etc., and the fauna of Sulawesi. This is why we see such a high level of endemism. The red line indicated here is the famous Wallace line, which demarcates the boundary of the Sunda Shelf and the Makassar Strait that separates the Sunda Shelf from Sulawesi. So Sulawesi, of course, is famous for its high level of endemism. These are also species that are probably familiar to many of you. The Sulawesi knobbed hornbill. We have the macaque monkeys that are endemic to Sulawesi, Sulawesi warty pig, tarsiers, anoas. We have marsupials as well, including the bear cuscus, and of course, the most famous of the endemics, the babirusa. But for me, I became most fascinated by Sulawesi when I realized that it's not just that Sulawesi has a high level of endemism, as Wallace understood, but that it also has a remarkable level of in situ within Sulawesi diversification. So there's been a lot of speciation within Sulawesi. And the best example of this, or at least maybe the most familiar or the first really described example of this, involves the Sulawesi macaques. There are 7 species of macaques monkeys on Sulawesi, and their distributions are indicated here. You can see that each is endemic to its own sector of the island. And so when I saw this, my question, of course, was, how general is this pattern? Is it just monkeys? If it's not restricted to monkeys, if it applies to other taxa as well, what is the underlying explanation for this kind of regional speciation on this island? So the questions that I'm really interested in as an evolutionary biologist revolve around how the diverse biota of Sulawesi was assembled over evolutionary time. So during the long history of Sulawesi, which has been isolated it's a 25 million year old island, how was this biota assembled? Where did the biota originate? What are the source populations of the fauna that arrived and the flora? How and when did colonizers reach Sulawesi? How important is this process of in situ diversification, speciation within Sulawesi? And are there one or a few primary drivers of diversification that underpin the patterns of diversity that we see on Sulawesi? But this, of course, requires understanding more about the Sulawesi fauna and flora so that we understand how much diversity is there and how it's distributed on the island. And so as a herpetologist, me and my many collaborators in Indonesia and outside Indonesia, we've been focused on reptiles and amphibians primarily. The macaques are part of the study, the focal group as well. But we've mostly worked with reptiles and amphibians to try to test whether, what the patterns are across a more diverse assemblage of Sulawesi fauna. And the one that I'm most interested in, and the one that I'm going to spend my time talking about for the rest of this presentation, are the flying lizards. This is the group for which we have the most comprehensive data. And so it's the one that I will use to sort of exemplify what we're finding with non-monkey taxa on Sulawesi. So the flying lizards on Sulawesi are part of this monophyletic group called the Dracolineatus group, or a monophyletic clade. The Dracolineatus group includes 9 described species. 6 of those species are on islands surrounding Sulawesi, like the Togians in the Sangir Talaud group, in the Banggai archipelago, and in the Maluku archipelago. But 3 of the species, the 3 that are illustrated here, are found on Sulawesi proper. So there are 7 species of macaques on Sulawesi. There are 3 species of dracos on Sulawesi. And this is how they are distributed. The orange dots represent Dracospilenotus here. The green dots represent Draco Bakari. The black dots represent sampling locations for Draco Walkeri. So at first blush, the pattern looks a little different than what we see with monkeys, and it seems that there are fewer species. But it turns out that when you apply genetic data analysis to the system, there's a lot more going on than what is indicated by the current taxonomy. These are the distributions, by the way, for the other 6 species in the Dracolineatus group. So when we generate a mitochondrial phylogeny for the flying lizards in the Dracolineatus group, this is the pattern that we see. So there are 18 clades among the 9 Draco species. 6 of the clades are the species that are off on the periphery, and 12 of the clades are distributed amongst the 3 Draco species on Sulawesi. And you can see that the clades are regional in nature. And so each of the color-coded sets of dots here represent one of these Dracolineatus group mitochondrial assemblages. So this suggests that maybe there are more species of flying lizards than there are species of monkeys on Sulawesi. Maybe there are as many as 12 species. Now, when you see a pattern like this, the first question, of course, is what is the explanation for this, or what is a potential explanation for this kind of regional diversification? And a very good potential explanation for this was recently published by Nugraha and Hall in a paper in 2018, where they described the tectonic history of Sulawesi, and in particular, they describe their analysis of the history of land and sea associated with this island. So it turns out that even though Sulawesi is 25 million years old, it hasn't always looked like modern Sulawesi appears today. It's not always been shaped like a K. And in fact, at the outset, as we will see here in the next series of slides, there was one or a few islands present, smaller ones, and then more islands formed over time. So you can see that here at 15 million years ago, they infer that there were 2 islands, a western island and an eastern island. At 10 million years, there were 3 islands, an additional one now on the southwest peninsula of Sulawesi, south of the Tempe Depression. At 8 million, there were 5 islands. At 6 million years ago, there were 6 islands. At 5 million years ago, 6 larger islands. And then at 4 million years ago, even more islands. And then the process becomes very interesting. So we have this paleoarchipelago present during this time. It's easy to imagine that this paleoarchipelago was colonized by overwater dispersal from Borneo, the adjacent Sunda Shelf, from the Philippines, from the east potentially, depending on the taxon. And once a lineage arrived, maybe it arrived on this paleo island, it began to diversify there, and then it might have dispersed again by overwater dispersal to these other islands and evolved in isolation there following the process of allopatric speciation in isolation. And so you could imagine that species assemblages would have evolved in this paleoarchipelago during this period. But what happens next? At 3 million, we see that the islands are becoming much larger. We get the first connection between the western and eastern halves of Sulawesi. At 2 million years, there's even more connections. At 1 million years, almost all of Sulawesi is now connected. Only the Southwest Peninsula remains a separate island. And then, of course, more recently, Sulawesi appears like this. So this evolution, this tectonic history of Sulawesi provides a real opportunity to explain regional diversification on this island. It's easy to imagine that the regional species were evolving independently on separate islands for much of their history, and only during the last few million years was there an opportunity for these islands to merge and then the species to come into secondary contact, presenting lots of potential dynamic outcomes when these lineages were brought into sympatry again or into contact again. In the case of the flying lizards, this seems to have resulted in many hybrid zones forming, tension zones forming. And so this paleo-island history suggests a model like this, where the individual parts of the island of modern Sulawesi were once separated by oceanic barriers, and we can put a time frame on those oceanic barriers. So the Southwest Peninsula formed 10 million years ago, and so from 10 million years ago until almost the present, there was a separate island here. And then nearly recently, they became connected, opportunity for dynamic interaction. Similarly, there were separate land areas on the west, in the west and east, beginning 20 million years ago. By 4 million years ago, they came into secondary contact and merged and created opportunities for dynamic interaction. And so this model could potentially explain the species distributions and ranges that we see on Sulawesi and the ages of the species. And so, of course, the next question is, how do we test this? We test this using time-calibrated phylogenies. This is a time-calibrated phylogeny for flying lizards. I showed you a flying lizard phylogeny before that was based only on mitochondrial data. This one is based on 1,100 nuclear loci. So it's a much more comprehensive tree. And you can see that the numbers at the nodes represent the time of divergence. And so the most recent species divergence event happened between Draco biaro and Draco iskanderi, which are on separate islands in the Songir-Talaud group. They only separated from one another about 200,000 years ago. And they split from their nearest relative, Draco ceruleans, from Sangihe Island, about 1.7 million years ago. And you can read this tree in this way, and then ask the question, do these speciation events seem to correlate with our paleo island history? And the answer to that question is yes, quite remarkably so. Most of the speciation events that we see on Sulawesi are associated with the paleo island boundaries, and the time frames actually make really good sense. There are some examples where we see speciation events that are, or species boundaries that do not seem to be paleo island boundaries, and these require further explanation, but most of them can actually be explained by Sulawesi's paleo island history. And of course, the goal now is to test this further in other taxa to make sure this is a general pattern. So I've spent a lot of my career working on this aspect of Sulawesi biogeography and speciation, trying to understand regional diversification, but this actually ignores a very important aspect of Sulawesi's biodiversity and a very important mechanism by which species can form on this island. And this is in association with high elevation habitats. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm just going to point out what we have been doing recently. We've been trying to investigate how elevational patterns of diversification have been superimposed upon this process of regional diversification on the island. And so we've been sampling for the past several years, we've been sampling, performing elevational transect surveys on Sulawesi Mountains with the goal of trying to understand how elevational diversification has expanded the biodiversity of Sulawesi beyond just what we see from regional diversification. And we've been focusing on different focal groups for this research because these other focal groups are ones that occur across elevational gradients and show species boundaries on the elevational gradients. So we've been sampling mountains. These are the mountains that we've surveyed so far as part of this project. And if I had more time, I would tell you about some results from this work, but I've already overspent my 10 minutes. And so at this point, I'm going to stop. But the last thing that I want to mention is that none of the research that I've just described to you could happen outside of collaboration. And the mountains work is even more collaborative. And so the research that we're doing involves Indonesian scientists, it involves Western scientists. We all work together to make this happen. And it really wouldn't work if it was only being undertaken by somebody such as myself. I wouldn't be able to do it at all. And the theme of this conference is regional knowledge, local knowledge. And on the mountains, we very much depend on local people to help us with our field work. They understand the fauna, they understand the forest in ways that we don't. And so we've been able to utilize information from our local counterparts that we hire to help us while we're conducting these elevational transects on the mountains, and to try to utilize that information as well. So I'll stop now. Thank you again for allowing me to give this presentation. It's a great honor to be here today. And I just need to unshare my screen. I can figure out how to do it. I am not seeing an option for unsharing. Can anybody help me with this?
Okay. Prof. Jimmy, could you please try to unshare once more?
I just don't see. I'm only seeing a green box around my desktop. I'm not actually seeing any sort of controls that would allow me to unshare.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, I found it. Never mind. Got it. I found it on another screen.
It is okay, Professor. Yeah. Okay, sir. It's a very interesting topic from your presentation, which is it's also a new knowledge for me, especially, and I think it's also for another participants about the flying lizard. Yes, 9 species of flying lizards, and it is in each part of Sulawesi. There are in various species in each part of Sulawesi, which is Draco species, right? And I think this is very insightful for us about we are living in the coolest island, as you tell in the first.
Indeed, you are.
Bring another. Okay, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, and Prof. Jimmy, since I lost my internet connection here and I got kicked from the Zoom room. Okay, Professor Jimmy, it's a very insightful presentation from you about the original species of Draco species in Sulawesi Island. I wish that it could bring more knowledge to us, especially for me. And Prof. Jimmy, since I have the information that you are not be able to stay with us until the end of this panel session, we would like to give you earlier the certificate of appreciation. Please, for the committee to give the share screen.
Thank you so much for the certificate. Very nice. Not here any longer.
I'm really sorry that the connection of my gadget is not really good. So Professor Jimmy, longer at this conference. On behalf of the entire committee, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to Professor Jimmy for your willingness to serve as today's keynote speakers. And we wish you thank you. And
Thank you so much.
we will forward to your email the certificate of appreciation.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'm sorry that I have to leave. I'm
Yeah.
going to the airport to catch a flight. So very happy to be here.
That you have another flight soon. Thank you, Professor Jimmy, and now we are going to the next keynote speaker, and this keynote speaker is also he is Dr. Kevin C. Rowe. And he is a senior curator of mammals at the Museum Victoria in Australia. His research focuses on mammal diversity, evolutionary patterns, and conservation systematics. And he has published extensively and collaborated on numerous scientific projects across the region. And today, he's going to present a topic about preserving Sulawesi small mammals and resilient rainforest for Indonesia. And Dr. Kevin C. Rowe, we are delighted to have you here, and you may now begin your 10 minutes presentation. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll try to share my presentation. Oh, hang on. I need to.
Mr. Kevin C. Rowe, I would like to confirm you that would you like to share your own screen, or you like us to share your screen?
Well, I'm trying to share my screen, but it's asked me for some permissions. Let's see if that works. Otherwise, can you see that?
Oh, your screen has shown now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to follow Jim and to proceed. Anung, And I think Jim's given you a very excellent introduction to Sulawesi, as I knew he would. And so my talk today will focus a little bit on the recent trip that Jim, Anong, Rizaldi, and I made to Sulawesi, and a little bit on why we were there. So our goal was to, in part, meet with faculty and students at universities from West Sulawesi University and Tadulako University in Haroleo, and to speak to you today. And so those were our travels over 2 weeks on Sulawesi and related to our long-term study there. But I'll start with why I first came to Sulawesi myself. So in 2008, I published this paper on the phylogeny of Australian rodents. And from that paper, we could conclude that there were two origins in New Guinea approximately 8 and 1 million years ago that came from originally Asia, because we knew the group's origin was in Asia, but the transition to Australia, the specific origin was really unclear, and the obvious gap in our sampling was the island of Sulawesi, the largest landmass between the Asian continental shelf, Sunda Shelf, as Jim mentioned, and the Australian continental shelf, the Sahul Shelf, and had never been connected to either, and had several endemic genera. And fortunately, I was a postdoc at Berkeley at the time, and was invited by Jim to join him in 2010, where I met my now brother Anong, and then in 2011, as my first as I started as a curator here in Melbourne, we led our first trip to Gunung Gandang Dewata in West Sulawesi, and here's Anong with a rare montane endemic Taetomes rhinogradoides. Over the next 10 years, we built the data to resolve the original question, which I'll speak a bit about later, but that Sulawesi really is the center of origin for both rodent radiations on New Guinea and Australia. So much of that work, as Jim mentioned, was fueled by this NSF grant. Part of what we were trying to get enthusiasm for continuing this work, and so multi-taxonomic inventories from 2016 to 2023, and those were really focused on specimen-backed inventories, which are essential to describing species and understanding the evolution of biodiversity. They involve these remote camps established sometimes hours, a day's hike from the nearest village. The work looked a little bit like this. So hiking in remote with equipment, there's a guide carrying a liquid nitrogen dewar and difficult terrain. And then working in places where, and still recording the necessary data for localities and where our traps were set and our specimens. And then preparing specimens in any kind of conditions. So I'll show you our last trip was in 2023, which we sampled Gunung Kelabat at the eastern end of the Northern Peninsula, probably familiar to most of you here, and Sangihe Island, about halfway between Sulawesi and the Philippines. Our goal in these projects is to conduct as much elevational sampling, working really from the last village until the highest points we can reach on the mountain, and often having one or more camps up the mountain to allow us to sample as broadly as possible. And then Pulau Sangihe required taking a ferry and then sampling along from a camp up to as highest elevations we could reach on that island. And all the while preparing these specimens that become registered in the Bogor Museum and and stored in partner museums in the US and in Australia. As Jim mentioned, this work involves a large number of people and increasingly more people involved. So our last trip involved 40 scientists, more than half of which were from Indonesia, principally from BRIN, but involved scientists from universities all over the world, including US and Australia. And as Jim also mentioned, that much of this work is driven by knowledge of local people who both provide access and particular knowledge of the biodiversity in their forests, and who express their interests and desires for what they hope to learn from the surveys. And our last trips involved at least over 60 people engaged in that scientific research. So on our last trip, in addition to presenting at the universities, we were also able to look at potential sites where we want to do the work and really scout out the next set of grants and localities that we could work. Some of them still contained intact rainforest. Some sites, like on the bottom, had been cleared, including a site on the lower right, which we had actually sampled in 2010 and was forest and is now completely gone. So that the urgency of this work is ever present, because the forests are declining constantly. And of course, the enthusiasm of local faculty and students is a big part of what motivates us to come back. And we hope that in this next iteration of the project, we're engaging with more of faculty and staff on Sulawesi. This is the audience from Sulabar and West Sulawesi. So I'll give you a little bit of some hints on what we've learned over the sampling over the last 15 years. The first is resolving taxonomy. Jim talked about how there's undescribed flying lizards, Draco, that these sampling and genetic analyses have revealed. This is really a global issue. This is a report put out by the Australian and New Zealand Academy of Sciences on the need for increased investment in taxonomy and biosystematics. And the pie charts you can see in the upper right, those are the proportion of species that has scientific names on Earth. So we have about 1.9 million names for species, but we estimate that there's closer to 9.4 million species. And so we have a long way to go to describe these species from across the world. And this applies not just to biodiverse areas like Indonesia, but also to Australia. You can see the smaller pies, and New Zealand, where we still have only got names on about a third of species. So based on our collecting on Sulawesi, we've increased the number of mammalian species by 32. And so that's completely due to collecting new specimens. 15 of these were shrew species. When we arrived on Sulawesi, there were 6 species named. And then new collections, we were able to describe 1 species, and then a revision of the group. We described 14 species in just this one paper. Revealing more than tripling the amount of diversity in this group and changing conservation concerns for the group. So what are shrews? What Apitu cincerut? So they're voracious insectivores with high metabolisms. They live throughout the world except Australia and New Guinea. The genus Crocidura, the white-toothed shrews, are the shrews, all the shrews on Sulawesi are in this genus, and it's the most diverse genus of mammals with over 200 species. In Australia, there are not shrews, but there are marsupial shrews in the order Dasyuromorpha. In this genus, one of the genera is Antechinus here, which are also voracious insectivores with high metabolism and a kind of ecological surrogate of the Eutherian shrews from the rest of the Eastern Hemisphere. We've also increased the number of ticus and rats by 17 species just through these new collections. So what is a rat? For most people, think of rats as pest species like this black rat or the house mouse. But these are only a very small component of a large family, Muridae, and the subfamily Murinae, what we call the old world rats and mice, the rats and mice of the Eastern Hemisphere. And there are over 700 species in this one subfamily, representing around 11% of mammals. So that means that 1 in 8 mammals on Earth is a murine rodent. And the vast majority of them, greater than 95% of species, live only in natural ecosystems and can be indicators of the health of ecosystems. And we really only find this diversity in the most intact forests and communities. So rats are rodents. and the word rodent is from the Latin rodere, means to gnaw, and that's because rodents have this exceptional toolkit, these incisors, these ever-growing incisors that have an hard iron-rich enamel on their outer surface, that orange color you can see on the teeth, and then a softer interior dentine that wears away, creating this chisel that allows them to access food that animals much larger than them could not access. So they can get to resources beyond their size. And they also have these bank of molars, typically 3 molars separated by a gap, this diastema, that allows them to chisel into resources and then to chew those resources. And just to give you a sense of how remarkable some of the new discoveries were on Sulawesi, this is Posidentomys vermidax, known to the people of Mamasa as sapiu, but completely unknown to science, and described by us in 2012. It's completely departed from being a rodent. Its incisors do not wear into chisels and actually form like a scissor structure that allows them to snip up their diet of earthworms, and are the only rodent of more than 2,700 rodents on Earth that have absolutely no molars. They have no way to chew. So they can neither gnaw nor chew, and so completely departed from being a rodent here and only on the island of Sulawesi. And currently only known from Gunung Gandang Dewata and the Corals Ranges, and from Gunung Latimojong on the southwest peninsula. Other ecological novelties was this water rat, known to the Mamasan people as Balawai, which means water rat in their language, and we named it Wyoming's Mamasai to recognize their knowledge, but is the only amphibious mammal on Sulawesi, completely unknown to science, and a completely independent origin of water rat to the water rats of New Guinea and Australia. So in Australia, we have the Ricali, or the Australian water rat, and then in New Guinea, there are several species of water rats that are quite similar to Wyoming's Mamasai, but completely independent evolution of those forms. And this one specimen remains the only specimen. Rizaldi has been spending some time trying to find other records of the species, but also exemplifies how the diversity on Sulawesi is just very rare and known from very limited records, making conservation of these species very difficult. So the other thing that we've learned, which Jim talked about, is the systematics, the relationships of species. So systematics starts with collections and specimens. That includes tissues preserved for genetics, but increasingly we can access traditional specimens dating back more than 150 years. Some of these skins here you can see here we've sequenced were collected in the 1850s, and we can now sequence whole genomes out of these specimens. So from these, we can sequence DNA, conduct laboratory analyses, and then use the DNA to infer phylogenetic relationships, much as we might infer family relationships, and infer relationships among species. So that's what we did in the paper that I mentioned, 2019, resolving the position of Australian rodents and the position of Sulawesi rodents in the tree of Murinae. This is a phylogeny, and the colors correspond to the geography on the left, so that we know that there's an origin of Murinae in Southeast Asia from fossil records around the Siwalik Hills at the border of Pakistan and India, and that's reflected in the phylogeny, with the oldest origins being in Southeast Asia, and then repeated colonizations of these other regions, including Wallacea, dominated by Sulawesi in dark blue, the Philippines, oceanic Philippines in yellow, and the Australian continent in green. And so if you look for the Australian continent, you can see the 2 radiations of Australian rodents are both nested within Wallacea. So from this phylogeny, we could infer that murine rodents crossed to Sulawesi at least 7 times, but those 7 origins, so 7 origins represent distinct radiations of rodents on the island, with now 59 species, and so 88% of that variation has occurred through in situ speciation on Sulawesi, resulting from those 7 colonizations. But those 7 colonizations then gave rise to radiations in other continents and landmasses, including at least 2 colonizations back to Asia, leading to species on the Sunda Shelf, and the 2 colonizations I mentioned of New Guinea, leading to radiations in Australia. So it's a much more complex biogeography, but Sulawesi has formed a center of origin for much of this diversity. And so this is something of what we think happened for the Australian radiation 6 to 8 million years ago. Animal rafted over open ocean, diversifying New Guinea. And then for some reason, it took another 2 to 3 million years to finally reach Australia, even though Australia was connected to New Guinea by land. But at that time, New Guinea, like Sulawesi, was a series of paleo islands, not a single island. And then they diversified there, and then at least 8 more colonizations back and forth between New Guinea and Australia. And then 1 million years ago, Murian Rhodes did again, rafting from Sulawesi to New Guinea with the native Rattus, quickly diversifying in both New Guinea and Australia. So Jim talked a lot about flying lizards and about in situ speciation within Sulawesi. So Sulawesi is not only an important landmass for transitions of flora and fauna between Asia and Australia, but also a complex island with a complex history, leading to patterns of geographic diversification within the island. And here I just want to get you to think about the comparative biogeography that Jim was talking about in relation to the Draco and some of the rats. So this is one of the most common, on the right, one of the most common rodents of Sulawesi, Musschenbroek's spiny rat, found from low elevation to high elevation on the island, but has this structure among genetic lineages that separates the peninsulas and these areas of endemism that are similar to what we see in Draco and in monkeys and toads. And so that this is a big area of research and exploration in how then the lineages that arrived on Sulawesi and diversified in Sulawesi, how they were shaped by the geography of the island. So I know that I'm supposed to be talking a bit shorter, so I'll end there and just say thank you for listening and for the opportunity to share with you some of our research.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Rowe for your informative and enriching presentation. It's about the biodiversity of Sulawesi Island. And one thing I highlight that there are many different rats in Sulawesi, and every time I see rat, it's just a rat. But since I read and focus on your presentation, I just know that every rat has different kind of species, and one of them are Wyoming's mamasai. It's Sulawesi water rat. Yeah. And
Yep.
It's very different from Professor Jimmy, which is Professor Jimmy before focus on the flying lizards, and Dr. Rowe is focusing on the biodiversity of rat in Sulawesi. And Dr. Rowe, I got an information that you will also not be able to remain with us until the end of this conference, and you will need to get a flight soon after this conversation. So let us give you the certificate of appreciation earlier. Since you're not be able to stay with us until the end, please, the committee, to share the screen of certificate of appreciation.
Yeah, mohon maaf, terima kasih, but I do have to go to another event. So I'm glad that I was able to speak today before that event.
Yes. Here is the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Kevin C. Rowe as keynote speaker in the second International Conference on Environmental Science. And we hope we can look forward to meeting you on another occasion, Mr. Rowe. Yeah.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of the
Yes, thank you.
conference.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mr. Rowe, for your insightful presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay, let's move to the next keynote speaker, which is our third keynote speaker is Professor Dr. Veterinarian Anang Setiawan Ahmad, Master of Science. He's a senior researcher and mammal curator at the Museum Zoologicum Bogorians under RCBE BRID Indonesia. He is widely recognized in national biodiversity conservation efforts, and his scientific works have played an essential role in shaping Indonesia's mammalia research landscape. And his topic for today's presentation is about Indonesia's roadmap for biodiversity conservation and sustainability. And Prof. Anna, we are pleased to invite you to deliver your presentation, and you have 10 minutes to deliver it. And I would like to confirm to me, Prof. Anna, would you like to share your own screen or would you like us to share it?
I'll be happy to share my slides from my computer.
Okay, please, Please, Prof.
Yeah. Thank you very
Halo,
much.
bukan saya yang
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Dean of Mathematics and Natural Science University of Gorontalo, the organizers, all the participants who has been inviting me, or maybe us, Prof. Jimmy, Dr. Rowe, and me, myself, in this second international conference, which is will be a very very a good to present what we did from our works, from our collaboration, at least for the last 10 years, 10 to 20 years. But right now, I would like to present about what the benefits of the scientific expedition related with the fauna expeditions into for everything. So I would like to share my slides. Is it already? Can you see the slide?
Yes, it has been shown on our screen.
Okay. Yeah. So from the previous presenters, it's been like, overview about everything related with the herpetofauna, related with the rats diversity, the mammal diversity of Sulawesi. So I would like to try elaborate what the benefits from the expedition itself. So first, I would like to say that we've been described like for mammals more than 20 new species, and the discovery of the new scientific thing. So we bring a new knowledge to the science. So the expeditions often uncover previously unknown information about ecosystem, species interactions, habitat conditions, or ecological processes. So these findings expand scientific understanding of the biodiversity at the local level, or the national scales, or maybe the global scale. So the data we've been collected include population estimates, species distribution, or maybe ecological role molecular or descriptions and etc. So this is will be very important information to the science. So the second benefit is our description of the new species, like uncover the many biodiversity, many species in Sulawesi itself. So all the expeditions lead to the identifications and formal description of the species that were previously unknown to science. So these include a new flora, fauna, fungi, or microorganism itself. But we today here we bring about a new fauna description related with herpetofauna or maybe the rat species. So from the description, after documenting a new species increases the country's biodiversity inventory and strengthens its scientific reputation to the world. So a newly described species often become the key indicators for the conservation planning. How important that area to conservation planning or policies. So and also the benefits from its expedition, the recommendations to protect that area that I mentioned previously. So the expedition results can highlight the areas that very like high biodiversity hotspot, also as a rare habitat or ecological significance. So based on the field data, we can propose the designation of a new protected area such as a wildlife reserve, national parks, nature conservation zone, and we did it related with the Gunung Gandang Dewata because before or at the 2010, Gandang Dewata still not a protected area, but right now Gandang Dewata is became as a national park in Indonesia. If I don't remember, this is number 54 of the national park from Indonesia. So the recommendation may include the zoning, management measure, or the threats or need immediate mitigations. So the last contributions from the expedition, I think what I tried to present today. So we give strong recommendations related with the national policy development, what we call it IPSAT. So IPSAP is Indonesia Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. So it was launched 2024. So the scientific evidence from the expedition support the formulations or the revisions of national policy related to conservation and protected area, land use, climate, or maybe species protection regulation related to diversity or others. So data helps policymakers align national strategy with the global frameworks like Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, SDGs, or NDCs. Expeditions also generate baseline data essential for national biodiversity reporting and also monitoring. So here are the documents. So Indonesia has launched 4 documents. So IPSAP itself and also 3 regions. So Sumatra region, Sulawesi region. But we still have at least 5 documents to write right now. I think that's the proportions for all the researcher, all the students, all the lecturers from Indonesia. To give a contribution really. So here the documents, 3 documents that we've been launched on 2024. So we still have writing on the ecoregion of Java and Bali, ecoregion and Maluku, and also Papua and also Kalimantan. So here are the documents, and this is the contents. So introduction, the ecosystem diversity, so and flora fauna diversity, and I think from this content, so this is maybe so our part as a researcher or scientist from the local university or from the others to contribute the information, the updated information of the species, the ecosystem, and everything. So this is also the contents for the ecoregion. And I think since Sulawesi already launched last year, so but we still can give adjustment. We still can give a contribution for the revisions or other maybe the new information to this document. So this is I think related with the content. So we mentioned in this document about the 22 updated the flora fauna diversity of Indonesia at the global level, but we choose at the time 2022 for the benchmark for the latest information. So we still have an opportunity to give a newest information to start from 2023 until now. So for the diversity itself, like average contribute 17%, mammals 15%, reptiles 9%, amphibia 6%, etc. So this is the biodiversity strategic planning, which is it has been mentioned also in the RPJPN 2025 until 2045, and also in RPJMN the midterm planning. So what's the indicator? That there are 3 indicators related with the reducing of the loss of the ecosystem and species diversity, and the next is the sustainable biodiversity utilization or management of the genetic diversity, which is this is a very lack of information related with the diversity. But I think right now most of the universities in Indonesia already developed the technology, developed the methodology related with the molecular activities. So this is the overview of the IPSAP document. So I would like to highlight about so IPSAP serves as the guiding framework for the biodiversity management in Indonesia for both governmental and non-governmental stakeholders. So it comprises 3 goals, 13 strategies, and 20 national target, and 95 action group, which is, I mean, some of the researchers can choose which one that you can contribute about the new information, so maybe not in the document right now. And then the IPSAP also will undergo evaluations and updating every 5 years throughout its 20 years implementation period. So I would like to present our lesson learned about the ecoregion. So this is also the information in the document. So each ecoregion possesses a unique ecosystem composition shaped by its flora, fauna, climate, and geological history. And that Papua contains the most complete range of ecosystem types in Indonesia. But Prof. Jimmy, also Dr. Kevin already mentioned that the Sulawesi also has a unique ecosystem and very important to science, to biogeography, evolutions, and others. So this is the information related with species diversity. So Java, Sumatra currently show the highest levels of recorded plant and animal species diversity, but further exploration still needed for this island. So right now, the compositions of fauna, we have 31,902 species, and for the fauna, we have around 80,000. But you know, the compositions of the flora, we just identified the described species only 31,000, which is we estimated that Indonesia has more than 200,000 species, which is so there are so many unrevealed, uncover species that need to explore, and we realize the brain cannot do by ourselves, so we need to have a collaborations with everyone who are very interested with the diversity of Indonesia. So this is the composition, the number of terrestrial and freshwater faunal species. I think I'm not to make a detail about this. So this is also, we mentioned in the document the endemicity of each species. So from the 7 ecoregion in Indonesia, so we have more than 30% from each region, and the island that has the highest endemicity is Sulawesi. So it has been mentioned by previous presenter. So this is the describe a new descriptions, but the data only until 2019, which is we have information about a new description from 2020 until now. But I think this is just I try to figure out that what a new science Indonesia that can be contribute to the world. So this is very important information to science. So this the picture of the new species that have been described. And also I will mention about a scientific expedition for flora in Indonesia, which is almost a whole island Indonesia been explored. But some of the sites still have a gap of the experience, which is this will be very informative, very important information for us for the future. Some part in Sumatra, some part in East Kalimantan, and also mostly part of Papua still have a gap of information, which is most of the expeditions is in Java Island. So this is the fauna expeditions, also almost a similar pattern that in Kalimantan, Papua, we still have a gap of diversity information and expeditions. So this is the expedition that we've been conducted with Prof. Jimmy. Today also there are others lecturers from Sulawesi Barat University, Pak Rizaldi, and also the other colleagues who've been conducted collaborations for a long time, at least 10 years collaborations. And also I will mention about our platform from BRIN, the EBITE, so terrestrial expeditions platform. And the sites right now we choose Petung Kerihun and Danau Sentarum National Park, but the others maybe we still have a plan to go to other island. And me, Pak Jimmy, Prof. Jimmy, and also Dr. Kevin, the last 2 weeks we've been surveyed for the potential site. So I think this is a good opportunity for me to encourage students, maybe the final year for the next year, if they have interest in to do the thesis or the project, the research related with the diversity. I'll be happy to encourage the students to just join with us, just contact one of us maybe to join, and maybe for your final year project, thesis, scriptsy, or dissertations. Yeah, so that's my presentation today. So at least before I end the slide, I would like to say thank you again to the University of Gorontalo. The organizer very much, and good morning.
Okay, thank you very much for Professor Anang Setiawan for the engaging and thought-provoking presentation. And some things I can highlight from your presentation is about Indonesia is one of the mega biodiversity country, which is the biodiversity management itself is become one index of long-term and mid-term planning from the governance of Indonesia. And Sulawesi is the island with the high endemicity in Indonesia. I'm so proud of being one citizen in Sulawesi. And thank you, Prof. Yowan, for the insightful presentation. And we hope you can stay with us until the Q&A session, Prof. Yeah? Okay. Thank you, Prof. And we will now move to our fifth keynote speaker. We will now move to our fourth keynote speaker. And our fourth keynote speaker is Dr. Irwan Bempa. He is a lecturer and researcher at Universitas Negeri Gorontalo, and his research activities focus on environmental resource management, sustainable agriculture, and community-based environmental agricultural system. And his contribution have supported the development of applied environmental strategies at both local and regional levels. And today's topic of presentation is about integration of environmental governance and sustainable agriculture adoption. And we kindly invite for Dr. Irwan to share his presentation, and your 10 minutes presentations begins now. And I would like to confirm, Mr. Irwan, would you like to share your own screen or would you like us to share it?
Could you please share my presentation?
Okay, please give us a minute.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to special thank you for Professor Dewi Baderan and Professor Fitri Lihawa. Good morning, all of you,
Good
my
morning,
colleagues,
sir.
my friend, and my student. This time, we talking about climate change and community farming. So today I will present a study on the integration of environmental governance and sustainable agriculture as a climate adaptation strategy in Provinsi Gorontalo. Ladies and gentlemen, our research focuses on farmer groups in the Bolango and Bone watershed and explores how to community-based environmental management can strengthen the adoption of sustainable farming practices. This work aims to provide evidence-based recommendation for building climate resilience and local agriculture community. The watershed area of Bone Bolango are experiencing serious ecological degradation, deforestation, soil erosion, and unsustainable land use. Still on slide 2, please. With higher temperature and unstable rainfall that threaten crop productivity, corn farming communities which rely heavily on agriculture for their livelihood are becoming increasingly vulnerable. Limited access to innovation feature amplifies the risks. Because of this, strategic intervention are needed to support community adaptation. Slide 3, please. Our study draw on three key frameworks. First, community-based governance, which emphasizes participatory approaches and evaluates programs result using the input-output-outcome chains. And the second, sustainable agriculture, focusing on practices such as oil conservation, organic fertilizer, and crop diversification. Practices influenced by land size, education, extension access, and risk perception. Third, the sustainable livelihood framework, which explain how human, social nature, physical and finance assets shape community resilience. This integrated perspective help us understand adaptation in local Indonesian context. Could you please jump to a second slide, discussion. This funding highlight the land asset, education, and strong extension support are essential for technology adoption. Extension services, in particular, play a crucial role in guiding farmers' decision and helping them understand climate risks. Overall, effective adaptation requires a multidimensional approach combining technical innovation, community empowerment, education, and asset strengthening. So, in the finally of my study, in conclusion, the program environmental, enhancing environmental awareness and behavior, but sustainable agriculture adoption remain low. Land area, education, age, and extension involvement significantly determine adoption level. We recommended several policy direction. Strengthening extension worker capacity on climate adaptation, provide incentive for organic fertilizer use, promote asset-based empowerment to build resilience, replicate the environmental program model is other watershed areas, and integrated environmental and agricultural policies at the regional planning level. Thank you for your attention. I welcome any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Irwan Bempa for the insightful presentation about how to integrate the environmental governance and sustainable agricultural adoption, which is in the reality, the adoption rate of sustainable agriculture is still low. And with the determinant factors, two of them are land area and education, and it still needs more efficient regulation from the governance to have the maximum integration from two of them. Thank you, Dr. Irwan. We hope you can stay with us until the Q&A session. And we are going to the next keynote speaker. And she is the first woman keynote speaker in this international conference, which is Professor Dr. Yowan Tamu. And she is a professor of cultural anthropology at Universitas Negeri Gorontalo. His academic work explores the relationship between culture and the environment, traditional ecological knowledge, and the ways indigenous communities develop adaptive strategies toward environmental change. And his expertise aligns closely with our conference theme on conservation and local wisdom. And her today's presentation topic is about Guyula as conservation ethics and its relevance in the digital age. Prof. Yohan has shared her screen, and it is a pleasure to invite Prof. Yohan to have a 10 minutes presentation. This time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today, I will be exploring Huyula, a traditional Gorontalo ethic of collective cooperation, and how it offers a meaningful framework for environmental conservation in the digital age. While technology provides powerful tools, it's value like Huyula that give those tools purpose in direction. This presentation invites us to see how tradition and innovation can work together to build a more ethical and sustainable future. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin this discussion, let me introduce a cultural principle from Gorontalo, Indonesia, known as Huyula. Huyula is commonly translated as mutual cooperation, but this translation does not fully capture its depth. Huyula is an ethical system, a collective moral obligation that spells how people relate to one another and to the environment. It is not merely an activity, it is a worldview. In many indigenous societies, including Gorontalo, environmental protection does not come from formal regulation or technological system. Instead, it emerges from deeply internalized value that teach people how to behave, how to share responsibilities, and how to maintain the balance between humans and nature. Within the Huyula system, the community places a strong emphasis on collective responsibility. Forest resources, water resources, and farmlands are seen not as individual possession, but as shared space and trust to the community. This sense of shared ownership naturally creates mechanism for monitoring, sustaining, and protecting the environment. No drone, no satellite, no surveillance camera, just a strong moral understanding that protecting the environment is protecting the community itself. Huyula also functions as a social enforcement mechanism. Community members who violate ecological norms such as cutting trees irresponsibly or contaminating water sources are not punished by formal institution alone, but by the collective moral judgment of the community. Shame, loss of trust, and social disapproval are effective non-legal sanctions that maintain ecological integrity. This is what anthropologists often describe as a moral ecology, a system where environmental behaviors are regulated not by technology or bureaucracy, but by moral value and cultural expectation. It is an ethical technology. It is a form of governance. For generations, this approach has maintained forest areas, water sources, and agricultural lands in Gorontalo. People know when to plant, when to rest the land, how to protect sacred natural sites, and how to respond to signs of ecological imbalance, not because of scientific data, but because of intergenerational knowledge embedded within culture. Thus, before the rise of modern conservation, science, and digital tools, Gorontalo community already had a functioning conservation system, a system rooted in collective ethic, shared responsibility, and cultural wisdom. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now the question we need to ask is, how does this traditional ethical system interact with digital technologies that define our current era? Many people now assumes that indigenous values and modern technology exist in two separate worlds. But if we look closely, they don't conflict. In fact, they can complement each other. Digital technologies such as GIS mapping, community-based mobile application, drones for forest monitoring, and digital reporting system provide new tools for environmental management. These tools give speed, accuracy, and broader access to information. However, technology alone does not create environmental responsibility. A community may have access to satellite image, early warning system, or digital dashboard, but if the ethical foundation is weak, this tool will not be used effectively. Technology can provide information, but only value can provide meaning and motivation. This is where HUYULA becomes extremely relevant today. HUYULA provides the ethical motivation for collective participation, the social trust needed for data sharing, the cultural legitimacy for community-based monitoring, and the sense of belonging necessary for sustainable use of digital tools. Digital platform depend on participation, right? They need people to report problems, share information, and work together. Without cooperation and responsibility, the system simply don't function. In Gorontalo, the tradition of HUYULA provides the foundation. It naturally encourages collective action and shared responsibility. That's why, when combined with digital tools, HUYULA makes technology not just functional, but truly meaningful. It ensures that technology is used not for individual gain, but for collective well-being. Thus, that dialogue between HUYULA and digital technology is not a collision. It is a synergy, right? Technology becomes the instrument, while HUYULA becomes the compass, the ethical direction guiding how the instrument should be used. To make this more concrete, let's look at how HUYULA can be integrated with digital conservation efforts. First, community-based forest monitoring. Well, ladies and gentlemen, imagine a mobile application where local residents take photo of illegal logging, fire hotspot, or demands for areas that data goes straight into a shared database. Why do people participate? Because HUYULA teaches that protecting the forest is everyone's duty. The application becomes digital extension of their moral responsibility. The second, participatory GIS mapping, like drones, GPS, and mapping software can document sacred area, whether sources and traditional forest zone. But the decision about boundaries and management or metro HUYULA value community deliberation and shared responsibility. This is technology guided by culture. Third, digital coordination platform. Now, many Gorontalo villages already use WhatsApp and Telegram groups for daily communication. The same platform can coordinate environmental tasks, cleaning rivers, reforesting the great land, or organizing fire prevention patrols. This is HUYULA in a digital space, cooperation mediated by mobile phone. And the fourth, digital storytelling for cultural conservation, right? Young people now connect more easily through visual media, recording ritual, oral history, and ecological practice in video or social media helps preserve identity and pass on cultural wisdom. And in this way, HUYULA becomes a short digital heritage. The key point, technology does not replace tradition, right? It amplifies it. It gives new life to art wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, our discussion of HUYULA in the digital era offers several important insights. Let me begin with the theoretical side. Culture is not static, all right? It evolves and adapts, even in technological context. Traditional ecology knowledge continue to be relevant in modern conversation science. And importantly, digital transformation must be understood not only in technical terms, but also in cultural and ethical terms. Now moving to the practical side. Conservation program is indigenous region should integrate cultural value into their technological design. And digital tools must adapt to local governance system, not the other way around. And technology becomes effective only when anchored in community ethic. So what does this all mean? The dialogue between HUYULA and digital technology opens a new horizon for conservation, a model that is technological, advanced, yet cultural, grounded, and ethical meaningful. And to close, let me leave you with one thought. Technology may help us see the forest more clearly, right? But value like HUYULA help us protect it. That conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I would be glad to hear your talk, whether in the form of question, suggestion, or clarification. Please feel free to share and let's continue the dialogue together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Professor Yohan Tamu for the well-delivered presentation. And one message that I highlight in the conclusion slide about the technology help us see the force more clearly, but values like HUYULA help us protect it. It's a deep and meaningful message from Professor Yohan Tamu, and we hope values like HUYULA will be integrated into the Indonesia biodiversity management and monitoring. Thank you, Prof. Yohan, for your presentation. And finally, we will now proceed to our last but not least keynote speaker. And our sixth keynote speaker is Mr. Farid Zulfa Fahrudin. He's a PhD student at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and his research centers on environmental engineering with expertise in health, safety, environmental management, environmental assessment, GIS-based analysis, sustainability, and climate-related risk mapping. And his perspective highlights the vital role of technological and advancement in supporting conservation efforts aligned with the local wisdom. And his today's presentation have a topic of integrating science, technology, and local wisdom to protect groundwater from mercury contamination in traditional gold mining area. And I would like to confirm first to Mr. Farid. Would you like to share your own screen or would you like us to share it?
Yes, maybe I want to share my monitor.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, Mr. Farid, we will welcome your presentation. You have 10 minutes from now, and the screen is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the host for the introductions. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Warm greetings to all of you. It is truly an honor for me to be here at the University of Gorontalo for the International Conference on Environmental Science 2025. And before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce myself.
My name is Farzul Fahrudin. I completed my bachelor degree from UPN Yogyakarta and then my master from ITS Surabaya, both in environmental engineering. And then now I'm currently pursuing my studies at Shanghai Jiao Tong University at the Low Carbon College. Okay, maybe I want to directly to the slide. And before we begin, I would like to show you a short video. Please take a moment to watch it and pay attention to how pollution appears in the different part of the environment.
Currently, a great deal of environmental damage is occurring on our planet, including in Indonesia. This happens due to the exploitation of natural resources by humans and various activities that do not take into account the capacity and suitability of the land. Therefore, in its implementation, environmental assessments need to be conducted before, during, and after the activities.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, after watching this, I want to illustrate it more personally based on my experience. When I live in Aceh Selatan, there are traditional gold mining activities were located very near from my home. And then I saw firsthand how mercury pollution affected the river. And I think that it made me realize that environmental problems like this are not limited to one place, but they occur in many regions across Indonesia, even within our closest environment. So I think that it's just only mercury, but across our environment, many other activities such as coal burning, industrial waste, and then poor or land management create similar environmental damage. So based on all of these issues, lead us to one clear conclusion that effective environmental assessment is urgently needed to protect both our ecosystem and our communities. So into the presentations, I will share you a simple example of how an environmental assessment can be conducted using a basic overlay. And this method is simple and then accessible and help us to identify areas that are safe or highly vulnerable. And my hope that through this session, we can realize that protecting the environment does not always require a complex tool, just with the using like this. Okay, the example I will share today is a case study in Aceh, which I have titled Integrating Science, Technology, and Local Wisdom to Protect Groundwater from Mercury Contaminations in Traditional Gold Mining Area. Okay, this research was conducted in area of traditional gold mining. As you can see from the photo, the mining activity here is small and community-based. The facilities are simple and mostly built in residential area. And mercury is still being used directly gold amalgamations. And during my field observation, I saw firsthand how the processed residues, often containing traces of mercury, are discharged into the surrounding soil and surface water. So I think that the sites reflect not just a local problem in Payato, but it is a reflection of many rural mining regions in Indonesia where economic survival and environmental sustainability constantly opposite. So identify the vulnerability of this area become essential, and to support this analysis more clearly, I will present a wider view of this region with satellite imagery. Okay. This is the visualization of the research area. As you can see from the slide, the region is characterized by a combination of coastal plain and hilly terrain. And then on the western side lies the Indian Oceans, while the inland area gradually rises into low to moderate hills. And then the yellow boundary you see here represents the extent of the study area, covering several villages where traditional gold mining activities take place. And from this visualization, we can clearly observe how settlements, agricultural, and mining area are closely interconnected. So this proximity means that any contamination from mining processes, especially mercury contaminations, can easily find its way into surface and groundwater system. So that is why understanding the spatial and geological characteristic of this region is crucial before we can assess of groundwater vulnerability. Okay, I will return to the basic outline of the research. Based on the data in the previous research, tested the river from the upstream, middle, and downstream section of this area, and the result revealed that one of the sample contained mercury as high as 0.02145 milligram per liter. And to give you context, the safe limit for mercury in water to the Indonesian Health Ministry is only 0.02 milligram per liter. So This means that the local river water used daily by the community for bathing, washing, and farming has mercury level over 20 times higher than the safe threshold. So because this reason, that's the main motivation behind this study. And the research aims to, one, to evaluate groundwater conditions, and then two, make some zoning level of groundwater vulnerability, and then last is give some recommendation based on measurement result. Okay. I will move to the methodology. Methodology that I use in this research is syntax. Syntax is well-established approach to assess groundwater vulnerability based on multiple environmental parameters. Syntax is actually an Italian word that represents 7 key parameters. They are groundwater, infiltration, the aeration condition, and then soil texture, lithology, aquifer, hydraulic conductivity, and then last is slope gradient. And then each of these parameters is mapped spatially and given a weight and rating based on its contribution to groundwater vulnerability. And then after that, all of the 7 maps will overlay using GIS to create integrated vulnerability map, just only one unified map. And then after that, we can visualize which part of the study area are most at risk, and it make easier to identify hotspot area after that, where preventive action should be prioritized. Okay. This is the last slide of methodology. You can see from the slide. Each parameter, such as groundwater depth, infiltration, and the other, was assigned a specific weight and rating based on its environmental influence. And then this value was then processed mathematically to generate composite syntax, as shown in the table here. From the table, we know that a higher syntax value means that the area is more susceptible to groundwater contaminations, while lower value represent the area with stronger natural protection. And sorry. Okay, maybe I will continue. Sorry. This is the conclusion of the syntax method. You know that we can clearly know where the location of the area that include in the low vulnerability, moderate vulnerability, or high vulnerability, like that. And by understanding its stages of syntax method, I think we can clearly see how practical it is and how it helps us to develop the necessary recommendation after this. Okay. And then after I'm doing some measurement in the field amount 3 until 4 months, this is the result of the 7 maps that represent the 7 key parameters in the syntax. Each of these maps represent a specific environmental factor that influences syntax. You can see the slope gradient, aquifer lithology, groundwater depth, and then soil texture, soil infiltration, geological rock units, and then the last is hydraulic conductivity. And then after we get some data and get some display from the 7 maps of the 7 map in syntax, all of together the 7 map, then combine using weighted overlay analysis to generate the final groundwater vulnerability map, just only one unified map, which we will see in the next slide. Okay, this is the step of overlaying. In the right slide is scoring, and then the left slide is overlaying mapping. This is the step of combining maps using the overlay system in GIS, and this technique can be applied to many types of assessments, such as vulnerability, and then land capability, and then land suitability for various purposes. Okay. And then this is the last slide. I mean that the result maps, yeah. This slide show the final syntax results. And the conclusion, we analyzed 122 land units in the study area from the scoring, and each area were given score based on factor in syntax, yeah, like soil type, rock unit, and the others. And the results are grouped into 3 vulnerability map, vulnerability level. Maybe I want to explain one by one. First is low vulnerability with just only 3 units. This area display with green color, but in the maps, very small area, so it cannot look easily in maps. but this area have characterized with deeper groundwater and soil that slow contaminations. And then the second class is moderate vulnerability with 764 units. And most of the area falls here with the yellow color. You can see from the slide. These zones still have some natural protections, but pollution can still move under certain conditions. And the last class is high vulnerability with 54 units. This area displayed with orange color map, you can see here. And this area have characterized like shallow groundwater and sandy soil, which allow contaminants to spread more easily. And this area are most at risk. So I think this is the final syntax. And after this, we can clearly make the main point that most of area is moderate, and we focus in the orange region that very urgent needed to doing some monitoring. So after that, it is very easier to make some conclusion, and after that we can clearly to make some develop management direction of our recommendation. Okay, maybe I will give some recommendation in the simple way. Based on the result from the study, we recommend two simple steps to manage mercury pollution in Tarsem gold mining area in this study. First is make some constructed wetland design like this. It's a simple constructed wetland, easy to operate it, and does not need advanced equipment, just only need 1.7 million rupiah to build it, and this equipment can make some reduce mercury by about 91.99%. And then the second option is to plan the phytoremediation plan. Because some plants that already grow in the area, like carabao grass, torpedo grass, Bermuda grass, and scallop pimpernel, can naturally absorb mercury in them phytoremediations. And as you know, that phytoremediation is the ability of the plant to absorb, degrade, or stabilize contaminations in soil, water, or air. And in the area, we can know that maybe, for example, scallop pimpernel is one of the plants that live naturally in this area that can absorb mercury until 89.13 milligram mercury per kilogram with dry weight, and they have advantage like it can grow without fertilizer like that. So as you can see, the two recommendations that we give in this study is simple, low cost, easy to apply, and the most important is this approach is reasonable because it takes the community conditions and adapts the solutions to their needs. Okay. Maybe I want to make some conclusion that this study, like overlying analysis like this, is very beneficial. It's very useful to assess not only groundwater like this, but it can use to make some measurement in soil contaminations, surface water, air pollution, ecological vulnerability, and the others. And this is the last slide. I want to make some point that this integration show that even in resource-limited area, we can create effective based on science and community-driven solution. And in short, our work demonstrates that sustainability doesn't always begin with large-scale technology, but sometimes it begins with the understanding the wisdom of the land itself. Okay. Thank you so much for this session. I hope that in the future more people will be environmentally aware and ready to respond quickly to environmental problem like this. Thank you for the attention. And now I will hand this session back to you, Rose.
Okay. Thank you very much to Mr. Farid Zulfa for the well-delivered presentation about how to integrate the science, technology, and local wisdom to protect groundwater, or it is can be said that groundwater conservation. Yeah, and I highlight one of the message, the deep full message from Mr. Farid, that said that sustainability doesn't always begin with large technology, but sometimes it begins with understanding the wisdom of the land itself. Okay, thank you for Mr. Farid for the presentation, and I would like to say thank you again for all of the keynote speakers. Yeah, 6 keynote speakers have delivered their presentation, and it also very enlighten us as the participant and the community. And we will now transition to our question and answer session. And this will run approximately about 1 hour, or let us see after the session begins. And before we begin, let me briefly explain the format. First, participants may ask questions directly by use the raise hand, and I will invite you to speak. And don't forget to mention your name and institution before asking. The second rule is you can also question by submitted through the Zoom chat box. And please indicate clearly to whom your question is addressed. And the third is I will select and forward to the question to appropriate speaker. Okay, with that, so we are now ready to begin our discussion session. Please, the committee is also looking for the participant has raised their hand. If you have any question, you can feel free to ask your hand, or you can type your question to the chat box in the Zoom. I believe that all the keynote speakers are very excited to wait your excitement and your question. So we have one question here from Fazriwan Mohi in the chat box. The question is addressed to Prof. Yowan. The question is, how can traditional customs such as Huyula maintain their purity as an ethic that can survive in this modern era, especially in matters related to environment? It's question for Professor Yowan Tamu. Since we got one question here and we have no other question, we still not have other questions, so I will just directly ask to Prof. Yowan about the question. Or maybe for the participant who have another question, you can just raise your hand and or type it into the chat box in the Zoom, and I will read it for you. And we will collect it all before we ask to the keynote speakers. Okay, Prof. Yowan, there is a question from Fazriwan Mohi. He is a participant in this international conference, and he asked you, how can traditional customs such as Huyula maintain their purity as an ethic that can survive this modern era, especially in matters related to the environment?
Okay,
Prof. Yowan,
thank you.
please.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. How can traditional customs such as Huyula their purity as an ethic that can survive in this modern era, especially in matter related to the environment? I think this is question for interest for me. Traditional custom like Huyula, the Gorontalo ethic of mutual cooperation can maintain their purity the modern era by reinterpreted as a living environmental ethic. Collective responsibility for land, water, and community well-being by embedding Huyula into sustainable practices as forestation, waste management, and stewardship of natural resources. The tradition remains authentic while addressing contemporary ecological challenge. I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yowan, for your answer for Fazriwan Mohi. And here we have a participant who would like to ask directly because she has raised her hand. I can mention her name. I hope she's a woman because I tell her a she and her. She is Sunny S from IPB University. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Sunny S from IPB University. To Mr. Sunny S, please give your question.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Prof. Yowan. It was an interesting presentation. And actually, my research is about sacred natural sites. So I want to ask about insight from your perspective about is there any sacred natural sites in Gorontalo? That was my first question. And the second one is, could you please give us an example of HUYULA implementation in daily livelihood from the Gorontalo peoples? And then the last one, is there any drawback or challenges of the HUYULA implementation in the community of Gorontalo? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sani. We are very sorry, but could you please repeat the first question?
My first question is an example of sacred natural sites in Gorontalo.
Okay.
Sorry, could you please write down the question in the chat box?
Okay, Prof.
Okay. And Mr. Sani, let me confirm to you to whom you address your question. Is it all question addresses to Prof. Yowan?
Yes, exactly, to Prof. Yowan.
Okay. Okay, Prof. Yowan, the committee had write the question of Mr. Sani in the chat box of the Zoom. Please, without any hesitate to check it out in the chat box in the Zoom. Okay, while waiting for Prof. Yowan Tamu's answer, we still open for the question and answer session. So do not hesitate to write it on the chat box, or you can also raise your hand and I will make sure to call out your name.
Okay, thank you. I'll read your question. The first example of sacred natural sites, and the second give HUYULA implementation and challenge of HUYULA implementation. Yeah, that's right. Example of a sacred natural site like sacred natural sites or place where ecological value and spiritual meaning converge. Example include Lake Tondano, Minahasa, North Sulawesi, considered sacred by local community tied to ancestral myth and water rituals. And in Gorontalo, like Limboto, while not always formal labeled sacred, it has deep cultural resonance and could be framed as a sacred ecological site where HUYULA value apply. And the second, HUYULA implementation, the fits community cleanups. So villagers collectively clean rivers, right, beaches or sacred groves, echoing the spirit of gotong royong. Gotong royong same with Huyula. And the second reforestation project, cooperative planting at trees around sacred sites or degraded land, and cultural self responsibility. And water management. Water management joint efforts to maintain irrigation, right? Canals or protect springs, treating them as communal lifelines. And the next eco-cultural ritual in Gorontalo, we have there embedding environmental action, tree planting, and then was reduction, and then into traditional ceremony, and then reinforcing the sacredness of nature. And the last, knowledge transmission, elders teaching you that Huyula is not only social solidarity, but also ecological solidarity, right? And the last, challenge of Huyula implementation today, we can look commercialization or modern individualism, right? We look raising consumerism and individual priorities, we can voluntary cooperation, right? And the second, risk of Huyula being reduced to a symbolic slogan rather than life practice. And the second, we can look the policy and institutional disconnect. Like government programs may overlook indigenous ethic, focusing on top-down solution now. And lack of integration between customary law, adat, we can say adat, all right, and formal and environmental regulation. And the truth, we can look generation shift, right? So younger generation now may see Huyula as outdated, preferring digital or individual approach, and need to reinterpret Huyula in ways that resonate with modern lifestyle. And the next, environmental pressure, environmental pressure. We look deforestation, pollution, and climate change demand large-scale intervention that go beyond local cooperation. And community, now in Gorontalo, community may feel powerless without external support, right? And the last is cultural relation. Is migration and globalization can erode local identity, making Huyula less central in daily life now. Okay, I think my question that is Mr. Roseni, thank you for your question, and I think very interest for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Yuan. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Yowan Tamu, for the answer, and thank you for Mr. Sunny S. the question. Okay, the next question, you can directly ask by raising your hand, and I will make sure to call out your name, or you can feel free to type it in the chat box of the Zoom. While waiting to the participants' question, me as a moderator would like to ask a question to the keynote speaker, who is Prof. Anang Setiawan. This question is addressed to Prof. Anang Setiawan because in the slide presentation, Prof. Anang had been said that Indonesia is a mega biodiversity country in the world. And the question is, what is the indicator or factors that from what is the indicator of factors from land of Indonesia, and so it becomes a mega biodiversity country and how it compares to other country. The question is addressed to Prof. Anang.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. So the indicator of Indonesia, why Indonesia called as the mega biodiversity is, I think I mentioned some of the sample in the next slide, like the diversity of fauna, which is contributes mostly like around 5 to 20% diversity contributions to the global, like I would like maybe to share again. So this is just one of the sample from the fauna diversity, why Indonesia called as a third mega biodiversity. So here sorry, yeah. So this is like the information from the document says like aves contribute 70% to the global aves diversity, and then 15%. So I said that between 6 to like at least the highest is 70%, and this composition still unclear yet about all the diversity in Indonesia, and here I'm talking about the we still unclear about how many species diversity of flora, because as I mentioned previously, that Indonesia supposed to be like some of the from the previous article said that Indonesia has 200,000 species, but right now we just we succeeded to describe about 31,000 species, which is we still have like 170,000 species to explore, to investigate. So and from I mentioned previously, like that the expedition, the scientific expedition, that still need to do more in some part of the region, or the big island like Kalimantan, Papua, Sulawesi itself, because maybe like in Sulawesi, some of the sample maybe for mammals and for herpetofauna, we've been conducted intensive field work, but even that we still have to do more, because not just try to obtain the diversity data, but also we need to do more, obtain about other aspect of science, other aspect of data. So that's why we still need to do more to explore all the island Indonesia. So and then the other aspect about the microorganisms, and also as I mentioned previously, that at the 22 ecosystem types in Indonesia is so rich related with the other countries, because maybe right now I cannot present the comparisons between Indonesia and the others, but it says in the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, GBIF, it says like a very comparative, very comprehensive information about the China, the Brazil, and also Indonesia has the composition, the species composition related with the flora, fauna, and also maybe other microorganisms. And right now maybe like homework for us, because for the microorganisms, from the data that they hold in brain right now, it's around like a 40,000 isolate, which is it has been like a long discussion among microbiology billion or maybe a trillion species need to reveal. So that's maybe answer your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Anang, for answering my question. And one more question, maybe this is just a short question. I just curious about, is there any other country that also have that large biodiversity as much as Indonesian have, or do you think Indonesia is the most country where the biodiversity is very large?
Indonesia is the third country. The first is the China. The second is Brazil. So because the China is the vast mainland of China gave the most diversity in the world, and then also the Brazil, and I think after Indonesia, Russia, maybe if I'm not wrong.
Okay, thank you. Since we have China speakers here from China, maybe Mr.
Maybe can
Farid
confirm
Zulfa
that.
yes, could also give the point of view as citizen or temporary citizen in China. How about the biodiversity in China? What is your opinion about the biodiversity in China?
Yeah, I think biodiversity in China is more complicated because China have a large scale city. Yeah, China is the three biggest country in the world. I mean, after Russia and Canada. Maybe I just think that based on the large scale, so China have the biodiversity, but I don't think so because I don't too deep to learn about biology.
Okay, but in your opinion, is there the animals that stays in China is just almost the same with what is in Indonesia, or there is
I think
something
based on climate is different. Yeah,
except
based on climate,
okay.
actually is different.
Okay. Maybe one of the most popular animal in China is panda, right?
Panda, yeah, in Chengdu.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we still have about 15 minutes session for question and answer session. Don't forget to feel free to type the question in the chat box, or you can just directly raise your hand in the Zoom and I can call out your name. I will make sure to call out your name. I believe that all the keynote speakers is really wait for your enthusiasm. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, since we don't have any other question, whether in the chat box or the raising hand here, I don't see any raising hand in the Zoom. So we're going to the next agenda, which is giving the certificate of appreciation to all the keynote speakers. Since the first two keynote speakers had been given earlier, so we just give 4 certificate of appreciation to 4 keynote speakers. So the certificate of appreciation will be given by our head of department, Professor Dr. Sukirman Rahim. Please, Professor Dr. Sukirman Rahim.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Ibu Mulyani.
Okay, Prof. Sukirman Rahim would like to give the certificate of appreciation to the first one.
Okay, thank you for presenter and Professor Doctor Setiawan, ya.
And the second one.
Terima kasih banyak.
Next, Professor Dr. Yohan Tamu.
Okay, next.
Okay, next. Dr. Irwan Bempa. Thank you.
And the last one.
Okay, next. Professor Zulfa. Okay, thank you. Next.
Thank you to Prof. Sukirman. It's all already done because the two
thank you.
keynote speakers had been given earlier, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Sukirman, as the head department of environmental science in mathematics and natural science faculty, Universitas Negeri Gorontalo. And the last agenda for us is for taking documentation. I hope all the participants and the keynote speakers could open the camera and we will take documentation. Please, for the committee, so ready to take a screenshot. Don't forget to open the camera for all the participants. Okay, let me count from 3, 2, 1. Smile. Okay, once more with the other style of face expression. Let me count from 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you very much for the keynote speakers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the conclusion of our panel session, and we extend our heartfelt appreciation to all 6 keynote speakers for sharing their knowledge and expertise, to all participants for your thoughtful engagement. And in line with our main theme, conservation and local wisdom, we hope that today's discussions will inspire meaningful collaborations and deepen our collective understanding of how science and traditional knowledge can work hand in hand to protect our environment. And thank you for joining us virtually today to our keynote speakers, Prof. Jimmy, Prof. Anang Setiawan, Dr. Kevin Sirowe, Prof. Yowan Tamu, Dr. Irwan Bempah, and Mr. Farid Zulfa. Thank you for being here, and we hope we have another agenda in the next occasion. And thank you for all the participants. Don't forget to all the participants to be back to the main room, this link Zoom, at 12:45, yeah, 5 minutes before the parallel session will be conducted. And then this is the last minutes. And thank you for joining us virtually. Wishing everyone a productive continuation of the conference and have a wonderful day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jangan lupa peserta untuk hadir lagi ke Zoom jam 12.45 waktu Indonesia Tengah ya. Kita akan mulai sesi paralel. Terima kasih, selamat menikmati waktu break sejam lebih. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.